All right, so welcome to the webinar. And this webinar we're going to talk about the man-hour rating, and our main question is going to be how do we come up with the right man-hour rating? At the last webinar, part 1, we talked about how important it is to know how much to charge for each one of those pretzels that you're selling. And if you have a limited number of pretzels, which in the case of a lawn maintenance company is a limited number of labor hours, then what's important is you have to know how much you're going to charge for each one of those pretzels so that you can get the maximum amount of income from that jar of pretzels that you're selling, or that jar of man hours that you have. So now we're going to talk about, this week we're going to talk about a little bit about how do we arrive at it, how do we know that our man hour rating is right, how do we price our jobs, etc. and so forth. So take it away, Dave. Let's show us what you have for us.
Okay. First, I just want to remind you guys that if you missed it, part 1 is posted on our site. And if you click on the Show Me link, normally that will just download the webinar for you guys. But this time I included a bunch of information on a separate web page here. So you can view part 1 of the webinar or download the PowerPoint presentation that I was using. You can also download the man-hour spreadsheet, which I'll be using today. And then there's also some insights that some different customers gave. It's about a one-page document. Along the same lines, it actually has a link to the webinar on tracking employees, which this will kind of push us that direction towards the end. And I'll explain why you guys will want to check that out. And then also a link to a blog article that the manager of Clip Lawn Care recently did on man hours. So you guys can look at that and see what he did for our company, our lawn maintenance company. A little bit about myself. I am a graduate of PCC with a finance and management major, so I enjoy this stuff. I did work out in the field cutting grass, so I was a foreman for about 2 years, and I got paid per man hour. So this is definitely something that I kept my eye on when I was out in the field cutting grass. So without further ado,
well, a quick parenthetical statement here is we talked about this last week. We have site visits that we send people out on to do, and Jonathan Coleman is the guy who runs our lawn maintenance company, and of course he's intimately knowledgeable of both CLIP and business systems and all that kind of stuff. And his schedule for this winter is just about filled up. I know I was talking to him. He doesn't have very many times, because we'll only do 1 or 2 of them per week. So if you all are interested in that, getting that. But the other 2 people that also do site visits are Dave, who's presenting this right now, and Glenn Zier is the vice president here. And so both of them still have some open slots to doing some site visits, and that's where we go into your office and we go through all this type of stuff and try to figure out how to help you make more profit. There's also the availability of having a site visit as consultation. You can call in and we can spend a few hours with you, and there's a per hour charge on that. But anyway, if you're interested in any of that stuff, you talk to sales, and the sooner the better, because these things do fill up. So, okay, let's go for it.
Okay. So right now I'm just opening up the presentation. It's taking a second to pull up. Okay, so basically, the question that we're going to be asking ourselves today is, what are our costs per hour and how do we get to that number? Some of the stuff that we went over last time, one thing that we mentioned is the only thing that you can sell is time. The only unrenewable resource that you guys have is time, and once you use time, you can never get it back. So time is an extremely important resource to any company, and especially in our industry, you're on the customer's lawn doing the job. You need to keep track of that time, know exactly what you're getting paid for your time as a company. The most important question that we can ask about a customer last time we said is, how much do they pay me per hour? How much do they pay me for every hour that I spend on their lawn doing that job? So that is the most important question that you guys can ask about your customers. The biggest reason that companies fail is they overgrow. They tend to just keep expanding and not paying attention to how much they're actually getting from the customer versus how much it's costing them to do that customer's lawn. So the thing that you guys need to keep in mind is don't grow unless you know that you're already making money. Otherwise, fix the problem first. So sometimes it's a lot smarter to just slim down, cut out some of the bad customers, and get more of the customers that pay you a lot per hour. Basically, customers that value your time.
It sort of reminds me of you driving down the road and you're in some kind of an old vehicle and your tires aren't on quite right, and so you're getting a lot of wobbling from everything, and you don't really know exactly where this is going because you don't have good control over your vehicle. And in order to solve that, you step on the gas and try to make it go faster, thinking that that's gonna straighten you out. And that's the wrong thing to do. And your business is the same thing. You don't grow to make profit. You make profit first, and once your systems are together and working, then you say, okay, I can do this better. I can grow, but I got to be able to make money. If I can't make money by myself, I certainly can't make money with an employee. And so we push that hard.
Definitely. And like I said in the last slide, that's the main reason that that companies don't work, is they just start to get too big. They can't handle the number of customers that they have, the amount of equipment, the interest that they're paying. And we'll be looking at that in a minute, but they can't handle those costs and don't realize it soon enough, and then end up getting too big and falling apart because they got too large too quickly. So where are we going to be going today? What are we going to be looking at? Basically, how do I find out what my dollars per hour cost should be? One point that I have is Excel is your friend. Definitely use a spreadsheet of some sort to get to this information. We've got one posted with the information for this webinar, and we also have one posted on our main site too. So either one of those, pull it down, plug the numbers for your company, and I'll be showing you that in a minute, and figure out what that is. Use your financial statements from last year. So to figure out what you think your costs are going to be for this spreadsheet, take a look at your income statement, your financial statements, look at the numbers on there, and then use those numbers to find out, okay, what was my insurance for last year, my insurance cost. So definitely make use of that. I know inside of QuickBooks it's very easy to pull a P&L or a balance sheet and use that information. If you guys don't know too much about it, again, site visits, we're here to help you, and we would be happy to sit down and do that with you guys. As we go through this process, just let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll slow down and cover something more in depth. So that's what I'm here for. Okay, so first thing that we want to do is look at the labor sheet. So let me go ahead and pull that up in Excel. Okay. Wait a second for the screen to catch up. Okay, so inside of this company, we've got 4 different employees. And remember, use information from last year to estimate what you guys are going to be using this year. Now, the first thing that we'll start with is how much are you paying them per hour. So you guys should be able to grab that information right off the paychecks that you give them each week. So what's the per hour cost to you as a company? And then how many regular hours do they work on average per week? And the average overtime. I know some employees like to clock in a little more time, but you end up paying them a little more money for doing that. One other thing to keep in mind is how many weeks do they work per year. I know our industry tends to be a very seasonal industry, So I know in our area we have about, I think it's about 28 weeks.
Yep.
So it ends up being kind of a strange season. Let me see. I was just wondering, for you guys, how do you pay your labor? So I'm going to go ahead and throw that question out there. And if you guys can go ahead and answer that. So I know when I was working for out in the field, I would be paid on a piecework basis, which is basically by the job that you accomplish on a per hour basis. And that's really easy to track inside of Clip. It also motivates your employees to go ahead and work more efficiently, find ways to be more efficient, which ends up helping you guys out. You have to worry less about, what are they doing, because they're only getting paid for what they do. So it looks like about 93% of you guys are hourly with overtime. About 30% are salary, and maybe 4% piecework. So let me go ahead and show that. Okay.
So you got to wonder if 93% of you, it's either a really, really good thing, and that's the only way you should do it, or it's something that you can change and make a huge difference to the competition around you. So I think most other people haven't even thought or don't actually take the plunge into this piecework thing. I know there's always a lot of interest in it, because if we can motivate our employees, that's just so much easier to run a business like that. So you got to think about that too, and think about whether it makes sense for you to listen to everything that we've been saying for all these years, and let us help you get it done.
And a question that we'll be coming to later in this presentation is, how efficient are your guys? And in order to make them more efficient, maybe check out piecework and figure out if you guys can do it in your company. But we'll get to that later. So I know for our season it's about 28 weeks that we work. Typically out in the field, we might have one guy that stays and keeps working year-round just to finish up some of the leaf cleanups, maybe small snow jobs and stuff, but we tend not to do any snow plowing work. So inside of this company, we've got 28 weeks, one guy at 52, and we also have an office worker that's working. He's only working for 28 weeks, so he's actually not in the field at all. Juanita says that they tend to have trouble finding staff that's willing to work at a piece hour rate. Any tips on promoting this as a positive for the employees? Anything you want to say on that, Dave?
Oh yeah, we talk about various strategies. There's a whole, and we can't get sidetracked into a piecework presentation here. Believe me, we'll do one pretty soon. But there's a whole set of strategies that you can use in order to move people over from hourly into piecework, and a lot of it has to do with the way you handle it, the way you present it, and things like that. Once the person experiences it, once the employee experiences it, the good employees are going to love it, and they're going to not want to do anything else. So, yeah. So but that's in that whole realm. Believe me, we'll do a webinar on just piecework. Plus, look at the one that's already up there, because that really has a lot of good information. That kind of stuff isn't like Clip. It doesn't change every day. It is what it is. We're talking about human behavior and stuff.
Yeah, and I definitely, I as an employee, when I was being paid that way, I really appreciated it, because I didn't have to worry, can I take a break or something like that, or am I on the company's time so I shouldn't take any breaks? Can I be more efficient? How can I, earn more? And how can I be more of a benefit, I guess, to the company? So I really appreciated it, and I ended up, I think, making, on average, I made a lot more than I would have made on an hourly basis. So it works out very well for me, and we were running two-man crews at the time. So, okay. somebody is asking how the pay scale is determined. That's mostly done inside of CLIP later on. So we'll get to that, maybe touch on that a little bit here, but also check out that piecework webinar. Okay, so we have 4 field employees, 1 office employee. Field employee just means that they're out doing work. They're, boots on the ground, that kind of a thing. An office employee is somebody answering phones or recording what was done and what needs to be done, keeping up with customers. So maybe a salesperson, a customer service representative, those manager, those types of people, the people that support the people working in the field. So this works out to pay per week. This is just a calculated formula based on how many hours they're working and the number of weeks that they work. Average dollars per hour. This includes the overtime amount. So for some of the employees, it's going to be different than their dollars per hour because they do work some overtime. I know I tend to work a little bit of overtime every week. Labor burden. This number actually comes from the percentages that you'll see down here in the spreadsheet in the lower left-hand corner. I'll kind of scroll over there. And you can see that right here you enter in the number of production weeks that you have. So as a company, do you guys work year-round doing snow plowing, or do you just do 28 weeks of cutting grass and doing mulch jobs and cleanups, and maybe some chemicals too? For this company that we're using, they only work 20 weeks out of the year, 28 weeks out of the year. Health insurance costs per employee, and you saw that inside of this spreadsheet we can say yes they do or no they don't get health insurance. And then the labor burden is all that stuff that you guys have to pay to the government, company share of FICA, federal unemployment, workers' comp, all those other costs that go along with having an employee. So you can have, inside of this spreadsheet we have it formatted so the field is one percentage, office is a different percentage, because the office people aren't working out in the field, so we're not too worried about like a tree falling on them or them getting hit by a blade or anything like that, so we can get a different workers' comp rate. Any questions on that section? If you do have a question, just throw it up there and we'll answer it as we can. Okay. Average dollars per hour, we covered that. Labor burden. Benefits, if you guys offer benefits package, you need to know that what that's costing you. And this right here comes from a health insurance benefit that this company offers. So that's included in our formula. And then adding that to our average dollars per hour and our labor burden gives us $15.16 for this employee and different rates for other employees. So basically, even though I say that I'm paying this guy $13 per hour, because I have taxes and workers' comp, that type of thing, and I also may have benefits that I give them, this guy is costing me $15.65 per hour. So somebody's asking, I think, is that health insurance per week cost, or what is that? That's actually, I think that's a per year cost. So it seems pretty low as far as health insurance, how much it would actually cost for an employee. Let me double check what that formula is.
Health insurance per employee, it's probably monthly, I'll bet.
Yeah, that's per month. It's yeah. So that's actually a per month. That's a per month cost. You could do it any way you want to. Just make sure your formula matches. So if you're doing it by weeks, make sure you divide it down to weeks or months. So the next field that you guys will see is the pay hours per season. Actually, the field only pay hours, so basically how many hours do we pay them for, and that's 40 plus 5 weeks, 45 times however many weeks that they actually work. So this guy we're paying him for 2,300 hours. Production hours that he gives us is 1,200 here, and that's just the 4 times 8 times how many weeks do we actually work. So this guy works some more weeks than our season. So that's not included in production hours because he's not doing production during that time. These guys working about 1,100 hours apiece. Then our office guy is 1,200. This shows us just the field production hours, and then this is the yearly pay. So basically, what do we end up paying them per year? So those numbers seem a little small, but remember this company works about 28 weeks a year. So their employees are either laid off or doing some other job or something like that for those other weeks. Yearly with the burden, and that's the taxes, etc. So that includes those percentages that we were looking at, is a total of 93,800. And then you'll see that our average dollars per hour, which is this number, divided by the number of production hours that we have, comes to 1,280. Average dollars per hour with the burden is 1479, and the total divided by our production hours only comes to $23.11. So to cover our labor costs, we need to collect at least $23.11 per man hour that we're on the field. So we'll switch over to our equipment, and I think I've got a question for you guys as far as how long your equipment actually lasts. So I'll go ahead and stick that poll out there. I know some of you guys have pretty old mowers that you guys are using in the field. I've seen some pretty ancient ones when I was out working, but I know the company that I was working for, we kept them maybe 5 or 6 years, I think. So it looks like on average, I'll go ahead and close this so you guys can see it. And share it. Okay, that'll be popping up in just a second. So it looks like most of you guys are in about the 6 to 8 years range. So that's when you get rid of a piece of equipment and decide to either get a new piece of equipment or get another used piece. Some of you guys are pushing 10 years or more. Man, I bet the maintenance costs start to go up at after you get past 10 years. I bet those get to be pretty high. But most of you guys, it looks like, are in about the 6 to 8 year range. And that goes along with where this company is. They expect maybe a little less than that. They expect about 5 years of service on a truck, maybe 4 on a piece of on a 52-inch mower, a 36-inch skag. About 4 years is what they're expecting. So I'll start kind of from the left and work my way to the right. So number of pieces, there are 2 trucks that basically are basically the same. 43 hours per week they're being used, 32 weeks per year. So just multiply those together and you get 1,376 hours per year. So we expect it to go for about 5 years, and then we'll get a new piece of equipment. So the purchase price was $6,000, and this was not financed at all. I know some of you guys finance your equipment, and I know the interest on your equipment can be a huge expense. So it's really important to watch that interest number. Make sure that it doesn't get to be too big of a percent on your in your expenses and stuff.
Now, part of the reason why you want to make sure that you understand how long something's going to last and when you need to replace it. I've seen a lot of companies that start out, and they start out really strong, they start out well and everything, and the guy has borrowed money from his parents or somebody to buy equipment, and then after a couple of years he finds out that he needs to replace pieces of equipment. That's when he goes out of business. So up until then he thought everything was cool and grand, and then you find out that, wait, you have to recover that initial investment, and that's where they die. And it's anyway, it's that's very important to us as a business. Again, if we don't control our costs when we're small, we're certainly not going to be able to control them when they get larger.
Right. And the point is, even if you're a small company, make sure that you've got systems in place so you can see when you're starting to pay too much for a piece of equipment or it's costing too much to maintain it. Make sure that you have the systems in place that you'll need when you're big. That way, when you do start growing, you can keep on growing and know that those systems are supporting you, and make sure that your business is like a black box. You put in a certain amount of hours and work, and then you get out profit, and you can increase the number of customers, and it won't matter to you guys. So make sure that the systems are in place, even if you feel like, oh wow, this is a lot, I really don't need this. If you don't have it in place and you start to grow, you won't be able to keep track of what's going on inside of your company. So it's a good thing to do maybe on a yearly basis, or so it's a good thing to review pretty often. And one question I want to throw out there, kind of a business question: how often do you guys review your costs? And I mean, like, really sit down and go over, okay, what are my costs, how big of a percentage are they, and basically how can I cut some of those costs and make things work better. So I mean, really, like, sit down and go over them. Okay. A couple people still voting. Okay. I'll go ahead and share this poll. It looks like about 20% of you guys do it once a month, and 13 once a quarter, and maybe another 13% do it twice every year, and then 46 do it once a year. 8% of you guys just pay them and don't even worry about it. Like I was saying earlier, make sure you're ready to grow. Make sure if you can get more business, and it seems like the economy is turning around a bit now, then make sure that you're in a good place to take on more business and keep being profitable because you have good systems in place. So, yeah, that's interesting. So it seems like you guys are a little spread out on that one. The residual value that we have on this Excel sheet right here, it's basically, if after 5 years I sell that piece of equipment, how much am I going to get for it? So this company says on their trucks, they think, hey, if I sell it in 5 years, I'll probably get $2,000 for it. So, and maybe that's the junkyard, or maybe they're just selling it used. Inflation factor, basically, how many years are you expecting this piece of equipment to go, and then what's the inflation per year going to be? So total, that's 10% because we have a 2% inflation and 5 years. So 2% inflation is a little low. Maybe 3% is maybe a little more typical. But right now, the interest rates and stuff are pretty low in our economy, so it's probably accurate. So how many hours do we expect this piece of equipment to give us? Again, the only unrenewable resource you have is time, so it's important to know how long is this thing going to go for us. And then based on that, what are our per hour costs? And these are just calculated by the cost of the equipment divided by how long we expect it to go. The other side of the coin is if we have an older piece of equipment, we're going to spend more in maintenance costs, or if it's a if it's a truck, it's going to cost us more to fix than if it's a mower or something like that. So again, life expectancy, and then the per hour maintenance is the anticipated maintenance costs over the entire piece of equipment's life divided by the number of hours. So our gas and oil cost per hour that we use the piece of equipment, 5 cents. So our total cost per hour for this type of truck is $1.60. Our yearly cost comes to $2,000. Remember, we're keeping it for 5 years. And then the total yearly cost is going to be $4,000 because remember we've got two trucks that basically fit this mold. And then our total per hour cost is $3.21. So if you look at this, I just put in like a graph that basically tells us what percentage it is of the total. So so our really high ones right here are 3 and 4 and 407, which are the Skag, the truck, and the Right. Our other stuff is small equipment, so it's not all that costly for us. And then percentage of total I stuck there too, same thing. Total equipment costs, and then our total equipment divided by our number of production hours that we have, and that's with 4 employees. So to bring it to per man gives us, oops, sorry about that, a $3.91 cost. So compared to our labor, which was $23, our equipment cost is pretty low at $3 for this company.
Yeah, it's really low. That's part of why we've talked before about the idea of if gas prices go up, do we have to charge a lot more to our customers? And the answer is not really, because your gas prices in the middle of all this stuff are so small that even if they double, it's still not hugely significant. It feels bad because you're paying it every time you're at the pump, but
right.
It doesn't end up being that much.
The other thing that this tells you about your company is if you can find a more efficient piece of equipment, it doesn't cost you that much compared to how much you pay your men. So if it speeds them up by like an hour a week, it'll probably pay for itself.
Or to take that one step farther, you talk about having a breakdown. Is newer equipment worth it? Well, if you have a breakdown and somebody has to drive back to your office, and especially if you're paying by the hour, then your labor costs are going to go up. Your equipment costs, well, maybe it was only a $10 belt, but the labor cost was much more than $10 to do that. So I know some smart companies, for example, ours. Well, I say ours is a smart company, but one thing that we started doing is we started buying new trimmers every year, just buying new trimmers, because they cost about $300 and some odd each, and that way we don't have any breakdowns. We don't have to worry about it, and it just works. And we found that actually produces more profit than if we tried to limp along with some trimmers that aren't quite there.
Right. If you guys have a breakdown and it puts a crew out of order for an hour to drive to the shop, fix it, and then an hour to drive back, or even a half hour. If it's a half hour to the shop, fix it, and then a half hour to drive back, that's costing you, on average about $23 per hour that they're working on it. So an equipment breakdown where they have to travel back to the shop is actually pretty expensive. I don't know how many times you actually want to do that. So yeah, like Dave said, just sometimes it's worth it, just buy a new trimmer. Make sure that your guys don't get stuck in the field, especially if you're paying them on a per hour basis and they're not maintaining their own equipment. So this overhead sheet is going to be the next thing that we look at. This is per month, and it's just look at your income statement from QuickBooks or whatever accounting program you use, and you'll see all those expenses going down for the year last year. And then this spreadsheet, you just put them in per month. So $400 per month is how much rent was costing us at the time. I know it's gone up some since we last updated this spreadsheet. I added a column here on the right-hand side that tells us what percentage of the total it is. So rent is about 19%, so we want to keep an eye on that because that's a pretty large cost of what we do. Depreciation is a pretty large cost of what we do. We have to replace equipment that's starting to go bad every year. So that's a large cost in our overhead. You'll see some other things like office supplies, truck insurance, liability insurance, uniforms for some companies. It just depends on what you guys do, and this is going to be different for just about every company. So what we do is we take the total, and then we bring it to a yearly basis. Just, it's per month, so multiply it by 12 gives us the yearly cost. We have 40 hours per week and 4 employees. So remember, we want to bring it down to the man hour. Our total hours as a company, 4,480. And then overhead per production hour is about $5.59. So again, compared to labor, it's pretty small for this company. And this tends to be true. Your labor is usually your most expensive cost as a company. So then we'll look at the total spreadsheet. And a couple things. We see these are just from the other sheets, so all the same numbers we were looking at a minute ago. Our subtotal is about $32.60. And then the question of how efficient are our employees. I put in there, lunch breaks, etc., bathroom stops, how much work are they actually getting done when they're out on the field working. So I know inside of Clip you guys can generate reports that will tell you how productive they were for that day, year, week, whatever time window you want to use. And it will show you this number. I know on our really good days when we were working, we could get about 120% efficiency, which means that we're 20% more efficient than what our goal was as a company. So on a bad day, spring, long grass, whatever, it could be as low as 80% maybe efficiency. 80% of our goal, but we made it up later in the season. So that number is going to be different for each company, and that number has a lot to do with how do you motivate your employees and how do you pay them. If you pay them on a basis of every hour that they produce for you, like if you produce $40 an hour for me, I'll pay you, for 1 hour. If you pay them that way, which you can do in Clip, and check out the other webinar for more information again, maybe we'll do another one on that too soon, then that's going to make them more efficient. So if you have other things in place, bonuses and stuff like that, that'll increase the efficiency, and you'll get more out of them. So you see, our total is $32.60. Since we're only 90% efficient, our total costs come to $35. So it's about $3 that we lose just because they're not efficient. Our profit, how much should we make this year? That number is really a goal for you guys, and you have to keep a lot of things in mind. I mean, how much profit would we want to make per year? And answer to that is as much as possible. So, but on the other side of the coin is you can only charge so much to your customers before they're just going to say, okay, well, I'm going to go with somebody else. So you have to take a look at your competition, see what they're charging, make sure that your numbers make sense. Hopefully you guys have really low costs and you can make a lot of profit and cover those costs and make a lot of money. For this company, they're doing a 12%. We're going to up it a little bit. I think this company could probably make at least 15 or 20% profit. And that brings us to only charging our customers $43.04 per hour. So any customer that pays me $43.04 per hour or more that I am working for them is a good customer, and they're helping me to achieve that 20% profit goal. And they're covering all of my costs, which that's the $35. So I've got basically $13 in profit above my costs per hour. What's the projected sales number that I need to, how many of these, how many dollars do I need to do before I can achieve this? It's about around $200,000 for this company. So again, for you guys, it might look different. For this company, it's about 200,000. So I think we've got a couple questions here. Let me just check.
Well, when is the spreadsheet available for use? And if you click on last week's webinar, we started out the webinar talking about that, but if you click on last week's webinar, you get to a page that then has a link to the spreadsheet. So yes, you can download it and do whatever you want.
And again, that's just click on that Money by the Hour Part 1 webinar and then the man-hour spreadsheet. And there are a couple other resources there too, so make sure you check them out. Okay, so our percents, labor is about 54%. I don't think that's quite right. Oh, I see. Labor is about 54%. Equipment is 9%. Overhead's 13%. There's some other stuff missing because of our efficiencies and stuff. So you'd want to include that as well. I just threw this together real quick, so I didn't add the efficiency or anything else to it. So again, this shows you labor is a huge part of this company. If they can find a way to make their employees more efficient, then it'll help them out a ton.
And if you can control labor, the rest of it, I mean, we get down to thinking, I've seen companies that concentrate on, oh, I need to lower my rent by a few $100s a month, and that's going to be great. And in the meantime, they're not making their employees as efficient as possible, as productive as possible. I mean, don't worry, you're spending so much time trying to figure out how to save a few $100s in rent, when what you should be doing is figuring out how to motivate your employees, and that would make such a huge difference to your bottom line that sometimes it has to do with what are you concentrating on? What are you focusing on?
Yeah, if you guys aren't monitoring these kinds of things in your companies, then you're not really going to know what you should spend your time on and what you should pay a lot of attention to. So I can see here, like, my equipment is a fairly low cost to me right now. I don't have too much maintenance, and I'm not paying too much for new equipment. My labor is the biggest cost to me. So as a business owner, I should really be focusing my time on labor and trying to bring those costs down, find better ways to pay my employees, to motivate them, to get them out in the field. So that's the most important thing for this company to focus on, and you can see that by looking at these numbers. There are a lot of other financial things that you can do when you look at your books, like you can create percentages and stuff, all that finance stuff. I mean, that's useful too, and that will also, again, show you where you need to be focused. So it's really important to know what's a good place for you to spend your time on, what's a good place for you to pay a lot of attention to. So I know gadgets are fun and stuff, but in this case, for this company, they shouldn't really be focusing on how they can cut their equipment costs. So let's see. Okay, so now that we have that number, and again, that number was $43 per hour, and that's what we're trying to make as a company. what do we do with it? How does that help us in CLIP? Basically, that number will tell us how much we need to make per hour when we're working for our employees or for our customers.
Let me give an example here,
Sure.
an actual example that happened with Glenn. Glenn went out on a site visit. I believe it was Ohio or Illinois, someplace out there, and this was a young man who had taken over his parents' business and was trying to make a go out of it and couldn't figure out why he wasn't making any money. And Glenn actually worked him through this spreadsheet or one very similar to it, worked him all the way through to the end, and he came to the end of the spreadsheet figuring out that he had to charge something like $70 or $75 per man per hour on the to his customers. Well, if you looked at the marketplace, that's not going to happen. You're not going to get any jobs by bidding it that way. And when we did the job costing report in CLIP, we found out that his average was something like $26 or $27 per man hour. And so so you've got this huge disparity. No wonder he's losing money. So in looking at it closer, at that point you start to look back at it. You start to see, okay, well, what is it? And what he had is he had bought a lot of, or his parents had, or whatever, he had bought a lot of new trucks. He had a lot of, he had more employees than he needed for the amount of work that he had. He had some leases going on. He had all these other things that were happening to him, and he didn't realize that that's where he was losing it. But if you do the spreadsheet and you end up with $65 or $75 per man per hour, you got to say to yourself, that's not going to work. Just give it up. Something else has to change here. Your business model is not right. Which you're back to the same old thing. You can't grow with that. What you need to do is change directions, and you need to do something else. So that's just one of the examples of the type of thing that happens during a site visit.
Yeah, and like you said, if we're charging ridiculous prices, like we say, oh, we want to make $70 per hour, you have to look at what your competition is doing. Look at what they're leaving for your customers, or what they're telling your customers they can do it for, and compare that to your price. If your price is way out of there, something is wrong with your costs, and you need to get them under control. So that, yeah, same thing that Dave is saying. Pay attention to that information. Somebody asked last week, how do you, if you have like a landscaping job where you have mulch bags or something like that, how do you make sure that that's not included in the price? Because we're trying to get a number that will show us what we're trying to hit. If you put your cost, or if you guys have subs and you sub out some of your work, if you put that cost inside of this box right here, that will automatically be deducted for the man-hour rating. So you'll see our charge per job is 28, and if we put $10 of material cost in there, or say we had a sub do it and it cost us $10 to have him do it for us, we'll calculate it, and you'll see that this charge per job has changed to 18, and that's the charge, which was 28, minus the $10 in material cost or sub cost, and then equals, and whatever our goal is that we're trying to make per hour, equals 0.42 hours that we have to do it in, which is a little less than half an hour. So there's a little guide right here on the bottom right hand side that helps you with that conversion. Or pull out your calculator and multiply 0.42 times 60 minutes will tell you in minutes exactly what it is. So that just wanted to take a sidestep there and answer that question from last week. So if I look at this job is on hold because we're not doing it anymore. Right now it's our off season. So I'll go ahead and look at the history for this job, and I'm looking at the history for a year. I just want to see a year's worth. What are we making on this particular job? This report shows me that it's a contract job, so the amount was not charged to the customer. It was included in their installment. But based on the contract, this job makes up $25 of that installment. And the man hours that it took us to do on 8/10 August was 0.43, 0.27, 0.27. At the bottom, you'll see that that comes to $60.84, which is way over what our goal was. So that tells me that this is an extremely valuable customer. Every hour that I spend doing this particular job, this lawn maintenance job for this customer, I get $60.84. And that's just drilling down to one particular job for, a year's period, year time period.
But that would give me a great feeling for how to rebid this job.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, if I'm making $60-some per hour, it's like, leave it alone. Send them some. In fact, today itself, right now as we speak, we've got somebody out on the road that we hired to go out and deliver some little gift baskets to our best customers. Now, who are our best customers? The ones who pay us the most per hour. And so we've got somebody out right as we speak, out on the road right now, delivering those to our customers. But we can do that because we know which ones are our best customers, and that's how you make the profits that we're talking about.
Okay. Now, you don't want to. I showed you guys how I changed the dollars per hour inside of this job. If I go to a mow and trim all, remember I hit this Calc 2 button, put in what my goal is, which I think we said it was $43.11. Hit the equals button, it tells me, and then I replace in job, and it tells me basically you have 0.46 hours to do this job in, or about a half hour. So if it takes longer than a half hour, it's over what my goal is for my employees. And if you guys print a detailed route sheet, it'll tell the employees, hey, if there's one guy on this job, you have about a half hour to do it. If there's two guys, it's about 15 minutes. And when I was working, I would use that as a motivation. I'd say, hey guys, look at this. We're cruising pretty good. There's two of us on this crew, and we're working like we're four guys. And I'd use that as motivation for my teammate to get us, encourage us and keep us working quickly. Now, you don't want to go through every single job and change that value for every single job, because we know this year we want to adjust our numbers based on that $43.11 that we're trying to make. So instead of going to each job, you can do this from this menu right here. And the way that you get to it is Files, Global Replacement, and then Adjust Budgeted Hours. And if you click on that, then you'll see this globally set budgeted man hours. Now, I know some companies do it differently for different types of jobs. They expect to make more on a chemical job because there's different certifications and things that your employees have to get. So if you guys are like that, you can just narrow it down to, hey, I only want to do this range of jobs. I only want to do, if for some reason some of your customers are different, you could say, I only want to do these customers. I only want to do these crews. We give you guys a lot of flexibility if you do things differently. And we've built a lot of that in. So, but for this company, we're just going to say, hey, this is our goal that we're trying to hit as a company. I don't care what kind of jobs we're doing, if they're chemical jobs, if they're normal jobs. I want to be making $43.11 per hour. So I'll process that change and then preview it. And then if you preview it, it'll just show you a list of jobs and customers that were changed. So it's kind of nice to see it and kind of see what changed. So basically for these jobs, the amount is $20, so I have about a half hour. And you can see all of my customers are named customer inside of this copy of clip. So that changes that budgeted man hours number throughout the entire system. Okay. this is, keep in mind, guys, that this is a goal. This is what we're trying to hit. And this, Anthony Agudello asked the question, what about the traveling time in that job? The travel time to and from the job should be covered by this number. So I have let me pull up that one we were looking at again. So for this lawn maintenance job, I have 0.65 hours to do it in, which is about 35 minutes. So I have about 35 minutes to do this job in, but the 35 minutes includes driving to the job, doing the job, and then driving to the next location. So that should all be included in that number. And inside of CLIP, when you pull your numbers to see, okay, well, how close did we get to that goal? How good were our dollars per hour? You can pull it with the travel time included if you were recording that inside of CLIP. So again, Clip2Go Web is amazing for recording this kind of stuff, having the guys do it while they're on the field, and then just pull in the information, and you've got it all there for your reports and stuff at the end of the year. But the place that we'll see that information after we've recorded it would be under this reports, job reports, and then this job costing report. Wait a second here for it to catch up. Okay, so right now I'm looking at just customer 1009, all the crews that were working on that customer's property, all the jobs that they have with me. I want to see everything, and I'm looking for a year's period. Now, under our sort options, you'll see that there's a sort by dollars per hour, including travel time. That will show me the jobs that I got paid the least for, including travel time, to the jobs that I got paid the most for in travel time. And basically that, including travel time. And basically that will let me know, hey, this is the least valuable job that I have for that customer, and then this is the most valuable job. So it'll start with the least valuable ones in the list and then go to the most valuable ones. So that's really helpful, especially if I pull this by for all my customers. I can see, hey, these are the losers. I'm only making $20 per hour on this customer, and if you guys remember from our spreadsheet, our costs are $35. So if I'm making $20 on a customer, it's time to either drop that customer because I'm losing money. I'm losing $15 for every hour that I spend at that employee's on that customer's job site. So it's either time to drop that customer or try raising the price and see if they go for it. So I'll go ahead and preview this, and you'll see here's the lawn maintenance job for that customer. Here's every time that we did that. Here's every time that we did it for that customer. And here's the budgeted time. Basically what we said, hey, if I'm going to hit my goal, if I'm going to make 20% profit as a company, I need to be doing it in at least this time. For this particular job on 415, we said that was about 0.60 of an hour. So again, about 35 minutes. The actual time that it took us in April was about 30 or 45 minutes, and that we lost about 0.11 on that job. So basically what this is telling me is, hey, I didn't hit that time this time. I actually went over it, so that wasn't an efficient time. But this is every job listing. I know April was spring, and for us, first one or two cuts are pretty low efficiency. Just trying to get the customer started on the contract and trying to get their grass cut, and grass is growing like crazy, and it definitely is hard to stay on track during those time periods. But then you'll see here we have 0.26, 0.29, 0.36. We're actually making more money than we expected on this job. So the main thing I'm interested in is this total average dollars per hour. So for this job that we did, this lawn mowing job, we made $60.83 per hour. So that customer is paying us $60, and we're only trying to make 43. So that tells me that this customer is extremely profitable to me. Definitely want to keep doing this job for them. So we see we did an aeration and overseeding. That we made about $50 per hour that we were doing that job. Again, it's more profitable than what we're trying to get. Early spring application, we made $94. And then here we see nobody recorded times, so there's $0 per man hour. You see the actual time was 0, so that means nobody recorded our times. So if we don't know how long it took us, we can't know what the dollars per man hour were that time. So it's definitely important to be recording that information to make sure that you know how valuable your customers are to you and which jobs are most valuable to you too.
And that's, again, why we push the whole click-to-go and click-to-go web, because that's the way you get the stuff. I mean, we're not pushing it because it's just because it's a product. I mean, those of you who have ClipXC have one copy you can use. We're pushing it because this stuff is so important to you. You've got to be able to collect it.
Right. The reason we create these tools is to make your lives easier, help you guys achieve whatever your goal is. If you're trying to make 30% profit, we're trying to help you guys out with that. If you're trying to take more time off work so you can spend it with your family, that's what we're here for. So your success is our business, however you define your success. So we're just trying to help you guys get there. And if you use Clip, it's an extremely valuable system that will help you keep track of this information and help you know which customers you should be doing. So as for this customer, we see the totals for customer here. On average, we made $65 for every hour that we worked for this customer. So $65 is huge. That's way over our $43 goal that we were shooting for. Including travel time, you see that number under here, it was $57. So travel time counts. You have to get to the job. So that's part of it. So really what we made is about $57. Should we keep this customer or should we drop them? Definitely keep them because they're way over our goal of $43 an hour. So Clip gives you the power to know which customers to keep, which ones to get rid of. A couple other things that I'll just point out real quick here is if you want to send it to Excel, you can do that, and then you can mess with the numbers yourself and create percentages and formulas and stuff. I like working in Excel, and I like to play with the numbers and see different aspects of it. Which customer did I do the most with? How many hours did I work for each customer? That kind of information. So you can create formulas in Excel to do that if you want to.
Now's your time to do it. Now, when things have slowed down, you got a little bit of breathing room. Take your time and do it. Actually, right now, while the season is still fresh in your mind too. Because if you wait until February, you're going to be all worried about how you're going to start the next year.
Yeah, definitely. And and right now you can pull your income statements and stuff for an entire year and get a good idea of it because during the spring you don't have time to do that. During the fall you're kind of wrapping things up. So right now is the time to be looking at the numbers in your company. Another option that we have is to map point. So my addresses are all the same, so that wouldn't show me any information. But basically that shows you it puts basically a red dot on the map if it's under a certain number of dollars per hour, a green dot if it's over a certain number of dollars per hour. So that kind of gives you a visual. These are the neighborhoods that we work in. These are the ones that are most profitable and least profitable. So often you'll see, oh, the guys travel 2 hours to go do one job, and you'll see that that job is pretty low as far as what they're paying you per hour, what the customer's paying you per hour that you're working on it.
And you also might see a cluster of green ones. You see yellow ones on any of them that are in between. So the yellow ones are sort of like, okay, that's my mark. The red ones are the ones that you have to watch out and take care of. But the green ones, if you see a cluster of green, 3 or 4 green together, then it's worth your while to drive down there and inspect them and see what it is about this particular neighborhood, this particular group where they've been able to produce so much, and then how can I replicate it? How can I do that again? And that's what these tools are. These tools are for analysis. Go back, find the good stuff, and push hard on it.
Yeah, definitely. And this is an extremely flexible report. Right now I'm just pulling up one customer and I'm looking at a lot of detail in their account. You can pull this report for all of your customers and do a summary, so you just get that last number. Hey, what are my dollars per average for this customer? So we give you, depending on how in-depth you want to go, Clip will let you go extremely in-depth, like, okay, what was every single time I was on that job, or just, hey, give me an average dollars per hour that I made when I was on that job, or when I was working for that customer. So
okay, well, we've come to we're over the time allotted for us, but you've walked us through, first off, how to plug in all your numbers into a spreadsheet, how to find out what your minimum number of dollars per hour is. We've talked about how important it is to control your labor, and how you can see that equipment is actually cheap, labor is expensive. That's one of the reasons why we run small crews, because small crews are more efficient. I'd rather pay for another truck than I would to pay labor. Benjamin Franklin said it's easier to construct 2 chimneys than to keep them fed, and that is very true. And that's a great business adage. So, any final words, Dave? What do we do with all this stuff?
Man, put it to use. Make sure you know what your numbers are. Make sure that you know where you should be concentrating. Like in this case, for this company, we saw they really need to concentrate on their labor costs if they're going to try and cut costs, and then get rid of the customers that are a drag on your company. If they're not paying you enough, either get rid of them or jack up their prices. And then the other one is make sure you do your best to hang on to the customers that are valuable to you. And Clip is the tool that you guys can use to show you that information.
Yeah, and so we'll be talking about how to motivate your employees later on, and we'll be talking about the whole principle that if you get your best customers, we've concentrated a lot on customers in the last couple of webinars, but if you get your very best customers that pay you the most per hour, and then you get your very best employees, which is what we'll talk about when we talk about motivating employees. You get both of those things working really well, it just raises your company right in the middle of it, and pulls you up to a new level that you never thought possible. And that's what we're here for. And we're to see last week's, Dave, show us again where you start. You start at clip.com, then you go to the training, then you go to webinars, and then in this webinar you hit the first one. Okay, here Dave's walking us through it. Hit the webinars. You hit the first one where it says Show Me on the Money by the Hour, Part 1. If you click on that, you'll get to another website, which then you can download the stuff from there and see what it is. See the webinar, you can do all these different things. So this is just more information for you. Thank you very much for spending your time with us. Time is the only unrenewable resource, and we hope that we've given you something very valuable that you can take back with us. Thanks for being our customers, and Merry Christmas to you all. And we'll probably be skipping next week. We probably won't have a webinar next week, but we'll start in the next year. So want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And remember, your success is our business. So go back and enjoy your family, and let's get this business working a whole lot better next year than it did this year. Have a great weekend.